Let's get this before we are done, before we need more calories, or before something else happens with the microphone settings, because I'm still trying to get a hang of this, as you guys saw in that last review for Across the Spider-Verse. Still trying to sort out how to get multiple mics at the ready, so for now we're just doing the one, but I like the polar patterns that this one offers. Even though the Shure one is a little better, it's only in one direction, so, which we all know, doesn't work out and breaks up.
Unfortunately not right now. It was just horrible, and you were just tinkering with it for too long. What's wrong?
Went over your head.
What?
The microphone goes in one direction, and eventually the audio breaks up.
To ignore that horrible.
Anyways,
reference.
we went and saw The Flash. Got the poster. Kind of wish that it was a little bit bigger, just like the Across the Spider-Verse one, but it's actually pretty decent right there. Yeah. So, The Flash, the movie that we didn't think would get made, let alone released, because here we are finally upon the release of The Flash, and it's a very interesting figure of movie to tackle here, considering that it's multiple figures. It's already, I mean, they're in storage, but I got McFarlane Keaton Batman, the Affleck, and that's really about it. I don't know if I'm actually gonna, unlike Spider-Verse, I don't know if I'm actually gonna go back to get any of the figures for the remainder of the wave after watching the movie, because now after seeing it, there was all this buzz that it actually is a movie worthy of being released, despite the behind-the-scenes problems that our center star was facing, which is going to be the giant elephant in the room. It's probably going to be a test of mettle for a lot of audiences to figure out whether or not,
to sit there and
believe in the story, believe in the in the character, because Warner Brothers believed it enough to release it in its entirety without any kind of alternations. And
like a loving parent.
How to describe reluctant parent? But at least at least that's actually the motivation behind the Flash, trying to save his parents, which is ultimately one of the things that he's trying to do here, in the midst of Barry Allen, played by Ezra Miller, and him trying to pretty much fix everything that goes back in the past. And if you've already seen Back to the Future, if you've seen virtually every time travel movie that's ever been made, you've seen The Flash, which makes it a bit of a conundrum to describe this movie. How would you describe this movie, as far as if you were to go to work tomorrow and your friend asks you, what is The Flash about?
It's not a shit show. Forgive me.
Okay, you can describe what it's not.
Honestly, I did enjoy it. I was not bad at all. I was expecting to go in there, and I was looking forward to Oppenheimer. I've been blabbing to him about that. I was more excited for that one, and this one. I had even forgotten that it was coming up, because it was not, raving reviews about it. But
well, go ahead.
It had a good storyline. It actually was, just like a Flash should, the Flash story, trying to go back, save your mom, their parents. Just trying to go back and fix everything. And we all know what happens when you mess with time, any sort of time. Like you said, we watched Back to the Future. What happened with Marty when try to, go back and fix everything, different timelines. It's just, you don't mess with time.
Well, these filmmakers will make it known that they've seen Back to the Future.
A lot.
Yeah. And so, like she mentioned, you've seen Back to the Future and so many of these other movies where you start to screw around with the past, and you create a ripple effect. And similar to one other thing that we watched recently, where they were we were watching a YouTube video where they were talking it was Girlfriend Reviews, where they were doing their video about their wedding, where they weren't advocating for the skinning of animals for coats, but they understood.
Yes, we understand.
I don't condone what happened behind the scenes with a certain someone in this movie, but I understand why Warner Brothers was adamant to not do any kind of recasting, digital alterations, because he is in the movie enough. And despite so much of the marketing that's actually pretty well embodied in this poster, what's the biggest goddamn thing in this poster? Exactly. And that's exactly where the hard-earned dollars of the marketing goes to, is to promote Michael Keaton's Batman, who makes a return here, which is described by Barry breaking the Speed Force, which he always does. And you're pretty much familiar with that with CW Flash, which is one of your favorite things ever.
I love that show. And what happens in the show? He goes back. He
screws around.
Sees
creates
at the end. What happens? Please kill my mother. Forgive me for all those spoiler alert who haven't watched the damn show. Please kill my mother to fix things. Please.
An anchor from the comics as well. It's always been the mother, right?
We have to, like you said, we have to let go because you can't fix things. You can't go back in time. And this really cements this. And again, it's just a Flash movie. It really hits, again, it follows the storyline. It followed his characters. I even liked how he acted in the movie, you know, the humor. You see the difference and everything from the beginning to now. Yes, he has matured a little bit from what happened, and you still see the hurt there. But again, I enjoyed how it was a Flash movie. It was a Flash movie. Again, we were all joking, hey, it's Batman's movie.
We joke about it, but I can sincerely...
That's what we looked forward to. And it did fill us in that way. Oh, he was having an orgasm the whole movie. You should have seen his face. Thought he was 5 years old all over again. But this was a Flash movie.
That's the one thing, is that even though the marketing to save face, to save the optics, they lean towards the Keaton. I would even argue that in certain commercials that you see on TV, they lean towards the Batfleck. Where they show that opening. Well, here's the thing. Right now, you go to Target. I just went to Target right now. Yes. I went to the aisle. I checked before I grabbed my butter.
Sure.
And there's the Flashes. I think there was one Supergirl. Still no Batman. Because they're still selling out. However, when you do see the movie, it actually is the Flash. I'm actually pretty surprised Speed by Force. How it's very centered on him breaking the Speed Force, creating problems, potentially creating his villains, because here's the thing. I'm not gonna say too much about who the real villain is in this movie, even though if you've seen some of the action figures, you probably already know. But this is, again, very archetypal of the comics, and I would even say the CW show. How many of those goddamn villains in that show are his fault?
Because you
went too fast, Barry.
Throw the bagel. You threw a bagel at me, man.
No. There's a meme actually online.
Really?
It was me, Barry. Where like that's like the line they use for a lot of like surprise that's not surprise, because they were starting to overuse it. Didn't they start using it in the latter seasons where it's like, okay, let me guess, you're an alternate version of Flash. You're anti-Flash. You're a negative Flash. And Flash is always like, Pikachu face. Right? That's what I've been hearing. I haven't even bothered. Like, me? Did I cause that? Yes, you did, Barry. You always do this. And they lean into that quite a bit in this movie, but you can definitely feel that they lean into Barry's powers, into him being the Flash.
How he's grown is cool. I liked his powers.
And when you say how he's grown, there's actually a physical element in this movie that illustrates how he's grown, where, again, I hate to say it, I'm sorry, I hate to say it, I hate how good of an actor Ezra Miller is. They're a good actor.
The emotion, but the elephant in the room.
They definitely put in their the performance.
It's very honest.
And there's a physical element in the movie that also showcases how much he has grown in his alternate self. You see this in the trailer. You do see that there's going to be 2 Barrys involved. Unfortunately, I don't know if it was a thing with direction or writing. He was getting on my goddamn nerves.
I know.
Younger Barry. He almost came close to ruining the movie for me. Young Barry. So not the old Barry, the old Barry, the older contemporary self was actually pretty cool and awesome. The younger, again, I understand that, going back to what I was saying about understanding, I understand that he is meant to be the brattier version of Barry before the introduction of the Justice League, before any of that.
Well, he's not Barry then.
I think they just leaned a little too heavy for my taste.
I know it was driving insane. The minute he started, I was all...
And then over on the other spectrum, you have not Superman, but Supergirl. Well, we're on the subject of nitpicks or complaints, but again, this is not a harkening on the actress Sasha Calle. I think she's Hispanic. Yes. And she's the one. Here's the thing. I was about to say that, I was about to complain about her. I was already kind of spoiling a little bit of my opinions in the car with her, where I was about to get annoyed with her because she was doing the very stoic, like, I'll handle this, I'll do this, right, like that, and just kind of like always just being like this, always being serious. And then immediately I thought to myself, wait a minute. I shouldn't complain, Because guess who else did that?
Don't you?
Mr. Cavill.
Don't
And
go
that's
after him.
where it leaned into me that I'm like, okay, this is a very grand picture kind of direction. Even though Zack Snyder didn't direct this, it's just this. It probably just to stay consistent with this Snyder version of, because she's technically still wearing the suit. She's still wearing that design that means that this is
everything.
this version of Krypton, this version of the Kryptonians. Zod is still involved. You see that in the
Yes, this is still
trailer.
that storyline.
So this is still playing into the Man of Steel universe. So.
Yes.
We're probably supposed to just take it that this is how all Kryptonians are probably going to act when they land on Earth. From what I can tell.
Well, apparently his version, yes, it's gonna come down and just. And they're
But fortunately, holding it all down together in the middle is my man, Michael Keaton. Now, was he awesome in the role? Yeah, it's Michael Keaton. Come on. This is Michael Keaton. He is Batman.
We will watch it. Come on, back in his days. Awesome.
Did he have an impact on this movie the way Toby and Andrew did in No Way Home? No.
It was just like a.
It felt more like member berries.
Yeah.
Then I would even argue No Way Home did. Like, it was cool to see him on screen, but there were moments where it was just like, look at the cool stuff. And I'm like, yeah. But you're not tying. I'm not feeling the weight of the messaging about not changing the past or the scars make us who we are. Like, you guys said it, but I'm not feeling it like the way that the great power comes great responsibility happened in No Way Home, where you have to lose that someone to know what it's mean to be Spider-Man, which was tackled in No Way Home and it was tackled recently in Across the Spider-Verse. I didn't feel it.
Jesus Christ, I was pressing.
I saw it, but for some reason I just didn't. Either I didn't feel it, or I felt it at times, but I just didn't feel it as well as I did with those prior two movies. And it could be my Spider bias, but again, I love Batman, so why didn't I feel it here?
Well, I guess it's because, like you said, it's more of a
Always leave it on your side.
I know. It's more of a homage thing, It's like it's done. It's what I mean.
It was an homage, yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was more, even you see it throughout the movie, like, bats, don't get out of your ship. You're about to get crushed right now.
Yeah, and here's the thing is that...
You see the age, too. That's the thing.
It could be, you see the age. Yeah, now there's so many instances where you're like, yeah, that's definitely
sit
CGI.
down!
That's definitely a stunt double. That's definitely not Ben Affleck at the beginning. I'm sorry. Some of you may or may not know this, huh?
How'd you do the chin thing, what were you saying?
The chin, where, basically it's pretty obvious that Ben Affleck did not want to be in this movie, but he shot that one scene where he's just wearing the regular suit, and then in the bat suit, it's just a stunt double. That's already public knowledge. That's the reason for why the figures don't look like him, because sadly, Ben Affleck is so done that apparently it's not confirmed by him, but there's stuff behind the scenes saying, yeah, he didn't sign his likeness again, which is why that figure doesn't look like him.
He just went like...
And right now, in a little while, I'll show you, they revealed a Hot Toys figure of him, Hot Toys. So this is the professional $250.
The one you like, yes.
It looks like the stunt double. Look at his chin. There's no Affleck. There's no mole. There's nothing. And I'm like, so many people in the comment section are complaining, and I'm over here like,
he just completely...
He didn't sign the likeness. You guys can't, they couldn't do it. So a lot of people are arguing, why did you make it then? Well, I'm like, that's still kind of a decent suit that he's got going on. Has kind of like a blue hue. And
like the blue.
Here's the thing, despite not feeling Affleck underneath that cowl, pretty decent opening. A little bit too crazy. It actually harkened... That's probably one of the aspects about what made Batman such a fun time, not only for Keaton, but also for Affleck in this movie, is that it harkened back to the days where he had bat anything. If there was a situation, he had something that worked. Yes. For that situation, and that's probably what brought me back to that little kid kind of moment where you turned to me and you were like, oh well, whatever. And I think one of the elements that understood that was the director Andy Muschietti. So I told you when the guy with the hot dog that was the director Andy Muschietti. Guess what else he directed?
Oh God!
It. Chapter 1 and 2. Prior to this, he directed those two movies. So thank you, John. Well. And that's why he probably leans into making sure that he utilizes the frame very well, which is one of the biggest compliments I can give this movie. It has a very unique look. There's so many uses of the wide lens, uses of stretches, there's almost like even a moment where if maybe there was an alternate universe, I would have had him direct Doctor Strange.
Really?
That I was
You
like,
liked all, like the whole how it showed all the
how
faces, all the
the
people.
utilization of the Speed Force.
I love the Speed Force.
Uh,
How he even went like he even broke through. How he finally ran fast enough to go through. Forgive me, spoiler alert. And you see the.
Well, I mean, we know that he's going to break the Speed Force to
it's
culminate
awesome
the
to
plot
see it.
and kick the start. But in order to actually visually see it, we actually don't see too much of that in the trailer.
Mm-hmm.
So when you do get to witness it in the movie, especially in IMAX, it's actually pretty, it does become slightly sensory overload. And this does lead into what some people have been saying about the effects. And here's what I wanted to tell you in the car, and I wanted to kind of keep it until this moment, is that apparently, according to Andy Muschietti himself,
God.
the effects were done like that on purpose.
Why?
I'm having some trouble believing that. Especially when there's other effects. Here's the thing. For a split second, I would almost believe him because certain things in the Speed Force that look iffy, okay, I get it. But
Yes.
there's other action sequences where the effects still look too CG, but it's not, sorry. But it's not too... It's not Barry doing anything. It's either Batman or maybe even Supergirl flying in, and I'm still looking at the shot going...
But it's not even go that far when they're standing
playing
next
a
to
mobile
each
game?
other.
Or that, yeah. Or that too.
Like you can tell which one's the stand-in and you can tell which one.
Oh, when the two berries are sitting... You noticed?
The whole damn time, oh God.
Something looks off here.
I'm like, oh, I can tell which one was a stand-in. I could tell which one...
Yeah. There's scenes where it's kind of obvious, and I'm like, Bear's not using any Speed Force. How can you explain here? So some of that's the thing. I'm willing to forgive
huge thing
when
me,
he's entering the Speed Force and some things look too like. I'm like, all right, well, he's doing things in slow mo. Okay, fine. It kind of reminds me of those.
I'll forgive that part.
Those videos where somebody gets hit in the face, but their face is going like that, or like they get airsoft shot to the stomach,
and then
you see
bounces.
the stomach just go like that, and you're like, oh, how does it do that? And like, it does that, but it goes so quick, but we don't even feel it, we don't even see it. So I'm like, all right, maybe that's the inspiration. But outside of that, that's where it still looked iffy. So I'm like, how do you explain that? And I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to call bullshit on your statement. Nevertheless, Andy Muschietti was able to hold everything together fairly well. That this is a 2.5 hour movie. Didn't feel like it.
Felt like an hour and a half, actually.
It ended, and I was like,
over. Huh,
I don't feel fatigue. I was like, all right, okay.
That's what I'm saying. The story flowed. It went.
It's fast.
It went by in a flash.
Yours was worse.
Anyways, but yeah, it had a story.
This is one of the movies of all time. Is that what? Is that what you're gonna say?
No. I despise you.
Overall, yeah, it was much better than I expected. Is this still like a definitive movie that is gonna make you believe in DC again, especially after this reboot? No. In fact, I would even argue that its purpose about being a reset point, again, we're gonna do a brief spoiler discussion. It's kind of like a maybe and kind of like a not.
Which is worse because that means it can go either really, really bad or it can go well. So
it almost reminded me, kind of going back to more multiversal madness. Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness. What was one of the complaints I walked out of that movie where
you didn't feel like it did anything?
It's called Multiverse of Madness, and yet I didn't feel the madness. I didn't feel like we actually impacted the multiverse in the way that we wanted. The people behind the movie were saying it was going to, and here they were saying this is the Flashpoint paradox, supposed to reset everything. Does it though? There's going to be a spoiler discussion. You guys can watch that.
That's it.
Yeah, there's one thing, but outside of that, I'm like. It
That's
still feels kind of pooped out.
Yeah.
As I mentioned before, still feels kind of pooped out, but at least there's just so much in here that was legitimately awesome, better than expected. Like I said, some performances were still very grounded, and as painful as it is to say, Ezra Miller is able to hone it in there as the focal point as Barry Allen, and Michael Keaton is still badass. And again, the way it's paced and the way that it was kind of strung together is quite frankly nothing short of a goddamn miracle for this kind of movie that's been in production for so long, went through so many directors, now with the troubled star at the center. But here we are, and I can walk away saying that was actually not bad. Is it the saving grace for DC? Not at all. This is still a movie that I look at and go, all right, we got that moved out of the way. James Gunn, what's
Please
your
do something.
what's your next thing? What's your next year moving forward?
I hope that they run away with this and be like, you know what? Let's build on this. Let's actually, keep going. Okay, where are we gonna go with our heroes? What storyline? Let's reset this correctly.
And what?
Because it's just getting exhausting with DC and Marvel. Let's just get our shit together at this point.
Seeing, there's moments where this movie even feels like a bit of a reminder of that towards the end, where you see the legacy of DC and Warner Brothers, and thinking to yourself, is there an alternate universe where Warner Brothers sells DC? Not that I'm not advocating for them to do so, but would that be considered, an option? What could have been? What should be? That kind of thing. So it did make me ponder it in that way. And what you were saying, what James Gunn, what do you have to show? And Andy Muschietti as director, what is he going to show? Because it has been announced he is sticking with DC. He's going to be doing The Brave and the Bold.
Oh God!
You know who that is?
Crannies are in a twist.
Huh?
Isn't that Batman? Yeah. See what I mean? That's what I'm saying.
Batman,
are in
and
a twist.
finally our first look at Damian Wayne, his son. So he's actually gonna take his son in. And hey, he's already now had experience with 2 Batmen, so let's see what he does there, because I definitely feel like he's got a hold on Batman. Even though his is probably like a, there's a little bit of Schumacher in there with the goofiness, but there's also a little bit of kinetic, fighting and maneuverability like Snyder liked to do, where he was like throwing things. So I saw a blend of that happening here. That. So, yeah. Anyways, I would, out of 10, what would you give it?
I give it a 6.5.
6.5?
Mm-hmm. Only because of the ending and how you said, like, I feel like the loose ends were not completely tied up how I wanted. That's it.
As compact, as compact, and I felt the same way. But I'm a simp for Batman. I'm gonna go a little higher than you by 0.5, a 7.
My God.
Yeah.
I was expecting like a damn 7.5 or something. I was like, oh my God, he's gonna blow it out of the pot.
A what?
Like 7.5 or something.
You know what? I would have done 7.5, but that end credit scene, similar to our actual ending, nothing. I was like, all right, just a goof. That's cute. 7. Still gonna return with 7.
In other words, guys, let's get it together. We want good movies.
Yeah,
actors
across the Spider-Verse has proved that it's not about superhero fatigue in general. It's about bad superhero movie fatigue. As long as you get, James Gunn even mentioned this, you get the stories right, you can still bring people back in and still deliver. And Flash, for the most part, delivers. And if you're a fan of the Flash, I'd say, if somebody's favorite superhero was Flash and they asked me, should I go see the Flash? I'll be like, yeah. Yeah, they honed in on the powers. They honed in on the portrayal of the character. I'm like, yeah,
I was like, oh my God!
Like I said, they made the Speed Force look cool. They made his powers look cool. I was actually like,
are cool. Huh. I told you.
It actually looked kind of cool to run like that, especially at the beginning where it showed all the cities going like that.
I wasn't just into the Flash because he was cute, from the show. Yeah, sure. It's partial, but it was a good show.
Anyways, I would recommend it for a Flash fan. Definitely recommend it for a Batman fan. Just don't think that it's going to be Batman,
it's not. It's
the movie that just happens to include the Flash. That's mainly the marketing, but it's surprising how much of a Flash movie this is.
Yes.
And now we're going to do the spoilers real quick. So if you guys haven't seen the movie, go and check that video out. And we'll see you guys whenever she shows up again. Oppenheimer. No, we're not going to do that. I'm only doing this review here because it's got Batman in it. Batman.